Okay everyone, in this video we're going to quickly discuss vertex groups. A lot of you probably know what this is. If you are familiar with hard surface, they're pretty useful. So vertex groups allow us to assign a set of vertices to a single group, so that way we can work with that specific set of vertices only. So I'm going to go in here and demonstrate. I'm going to tab into edit mode, and a vertex group is very simple. You select whatever vertices you want to group together. You go to this green triangle panel. You go to vertex groups, click on the plus icon, and then you'll have this assign option here. If we click on assign, you're going to see now if we select and deselect, we have our own vertex group. We could also do the same thing with these two. Maybe assign a new one. We'll click on assign. Check this out. Select and deselect, it's just those two. And then down here, maybe we could just assign a single vertex. We'll do another group, assign. And I always like to double check to make sure it actually went through. Just select and deselect, make sure everything is good to go, which it looks like it is. Now, I most commonly use vertex groups on bevel modifiers, but you can also use them on things like shrink wrap, data transfer, all sorts of different modifiers. Nearly everyone will have some sort of option for vertex group as long as it supports that. I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate it with a bevel modifier because that's when you'll probably use it the most. And we're going to go here, add a bevel modifier. You're going to see by default we have our limit methods. We have none, we have angle, we of course have our weight, and we also have vertex group. So if I click on vertex group, I can choose the group that I want to use. So if you remember, these top four were our first group. You can see that in here. So if I were to select the first group, which is just called group, and put that in here, you're going to see the only area affected is this top area, and I can simply go in here and adjust the offset, do whatever I want, rank up the segment count, all sorts of cool things. Now I could also do the same thing by adding another bevel modifier here. We'll go to vertex group and choose the second one there, and now you're going to see it's going to bevel this vertex group, and it's not going to affect anything else. So you can kind of do this to adjust different levels of bevels and things like that. And then perhaps for this single vertex, if I add in a bevel modifier and choose that single vertex we added, you're going to see nothing happens, but that's because it's a single vertex, so we'd have to tick on only vertices here for it to do anything. Now there's no right or wrong answer as to when you should use vertex groups and bevels or really anything. It simply depends if you need them for what you're working on. So there's no right or wrong, so don't expect to get a set answer of when to use this. It really doesn't matter. Use it if it's going to help your workflow. I probably use this about 10% of the time, so not a ton, but it is very useful to have. Okay, at this point you should have an idea of how vertex groups work. I'll give you just one other example of when you could use them, but you can use them in really any situation in which they come in handy. So perhaps I'll just use Suzanne as the example. What I'll do is add in, I don't know, a cylinder, scale this guy down, scale it up, and maybe I'll extrude this bottom face. Press E to extrude. And then what I'll do is assign a new vertex group to this bottom set of vertices. Even if it's in face mode, it'll still assign it properly, so don't worry about going into vertex mode. You'll see it still captures it nicely. So another cool thing you could do is perhaps add on a shrink wrap modifier. You could go in here to the target, and you're going to see whenever you shrink wrap something, it basically flattens on top of it, and sometimes you don't want the entire mesh to collapse, so you just want to use it based off of only a certain set of vertices on the mesh. So we could choose the vertex group here, and now you're going to see it's only affecting this vertex group on the bottom here, all these vertices. If I can actually select it, just those. You know, you can move it down, you can move it up, you can do really whatever you want, and it's only affecting those sets of vertices. So this is another pretty simple example of when you could use it. But yeah, as for vertex groups, that's really about it. I don't really need to go into every single situation you can use them. It just simply depends what you're trying to do. As long as you know what vertex groups are and how to assign them, you can use them in pretty much any situation you might want them.